Hey, Margaret, thank you so much for being here today. We're so grateful that we get to interview you. I would love if you could introduce yourself.
My name is Margaret Izard. I write paranormal romance under Margaret Izard. I write with Wild Rose Press. And I am here today to talk about my writing and my books because I'm very excited about my debut novel that came out in March. It is the opening to a 7-book series called Stones of Iona. And I'm just very excited to be here and talk about my writing.
Love that. I would love if you could tell us what your book's about.
The books they're paranormal romance. They take place in Scotland. It starts the series is actually based at Dunstafnage Castle, which is located in Oban, Scotland. It's on the Western Isles, on the western side, and it's called the Gateway to the Isles. It takes place at the castle. It starts in the present day. We have Lord Colin MacDougall, who his parents have died just as the book opened, and he's been given the lordship. And what he is not aware of is that he has a old hereditary duty that's been given to him and passed down to him to protect some magic Iona stones for the fairies, for the Fae. And in the beginning of the book, we discover that he's been given this task. He doesn't know a lot about it. His father passed before he could tell him about it, and he's also inherited his mother's project, which is the renovation of a chapel on the property. And there is an American scholar who comes and oversees the renovation of the chapel, and they fall in love. And during part of his duty, he is tasked with having to go search for these lost magic face stones. And his first task is he has to go back in time and assume the identity of an identical ancestor to hunt the first stone, which is Stone of Love. And that is the title of the first book.
Love that. What inspired you to write your books?
I've wanted to write. I'm actually in my mid 50s. I wanted to write since I was in my 30s. I've been involved in performing arts my entire life. I started dance at 3, acting at 8, storytelling, and sharing stories, and has just been a part of my life. I started writing in my 30s. It just wasn't quite where I wanted it to be. I don't think I was mature enough for what writing would take, the criticism that would come, which is interesting because I've danced all my life and I've been a professional ballerina. I have a bachelor's in dance, and dance and studying dance in and of itself carries a lot of criticism. That's all you do. You go to class and you get criticized, and you have to fix everything. And I just in my 30s, I just wasn't quite there. I wasn't quite ready. I've written a number of stories, didn't like them, threw them out, and I had triplets, and after tutoring them all the way through college, we came out of the pandemic, and I just said, if I'm ever going to do this, now's the time. I don't know if you want to call it midlife crisis. I just kind of put my foot down and said, this is it. I'm going to do it. And I really, essentially focused on it. I spent months, about 4 months, going through workshops, studying the craft of writing, the technique of writing. I knew that my writing wasn't at a place that I wanted it to be. And so when I really decided this is it, I got to do it now or never, I just sat down and said, I'm going to do that. And so that's what started it. What started, I've always been, people ask why this particular story? Why is it Scotland? Why is it magic? Why are the fairies? I've read so much. I started reading romances back in my early teens when I could sneak my books from my mom and my older sister. The old, I always crack jokes about the old Fabio covers, the covers of romances that had Fabio on them with the long, flowing blonde hair and the naked chest, and those were the books I snuck and I read, 12 years old. And I loved those stories, and that passion just grew. And I'm very well and widely read of romances. So when I said this is it, I'm going to do it. I really put together this series, and it's like I had a castle I had to base it at. I knew that I wanted time travel. I knew I wanted this paranormal aspect, the fae and the fairies. Those stories come from the Scottish culture. Those are part of their fables. Those are part of what the Irish immigrants brought to Scotland. And, these were some of the stories that they told before Christianity came to Scotland. And so incorporating that history and this culture within my books is that was a goal, and it was something that I personally enjoy reading. I've personally enjoyed writing it, and I really like the way that I've blended them into these stories, and Stone of Love is only the launching point of the entire series of where we're going to go with the six stones, and of course the seventh stone is the stone of destiny. So that there's love, hope, and faith are the good stones. The evil stones are lust, doubt, and fear, and then the six combine to show the stone of destiny.
Love that. When you were writing your book, who were you thinking of when it comes to who your book is for?
Oh, it's the first book, and I specifically comped it like this. It does comp to Outlander and Witcher. It's sort of this blend of the Scottish culture and history, combined with this magical realism of the Fae and the fairies interacting with the human world and the human realm. And I obviously thought of women. When you write romance, you obviously think, yes, my target audience is women anywhere from the age of 19 to 60, 70, 80. Any woman that wants to escape and look for the familiar tropes of what romance genre carries. But I also have men, and I thought of, I did think of men when I wrote it, and I do get and initially in beta reads, especially the first book, I got a lot of compliments from men on how I write the men's point of view. And because I do switch point of views, I do dual point of view. The third book, Stone of Lust, which comes out in October, actually has multiple points of views because there's two stories that intertwine and weave within each other to make that story happen. So, but initially the first beta reads came out saying, men saying, "Wow, you really do have a perspective of men," and I picked up a following of men, and I thought that was really interesting that they really get into the magical realism, the fae, how this interacts within the human world, and how these characters react to that. So, I when I first started writing, no, I didn't think of men, but now especially that as I've gone further into the series, I actually finished drafting book 7 yesterday. I finished the last scene of the draft. It's got edits due, but that finalizes the series. And as I finished the series, I thought of men and how men would read this and how men would react as well as women.
Love that so much. How long have you been writing and what made you really sit down and start?
Yeah, I've started writing in my 30s. I'm in my mid 50s, but mid 50s. That's hard to say. Mid 50s. That's scary. I don't feel like I'm in my mid 50s. I feel like I'm in my 20s. But that look at my grown, I have triplets and they're 26 now, and you look at them and you're like, oh yeah, I remember that. I remember that journey, But yeah, I it was now or never. And I, fortunately was not working. I haven't worked in quite some time. I owned a dance studio, and that was the last official job I had. Since then I've worked on raising my children, and I've dedicated so much of my life to them that it was, I had to find hobbies in order not to get lost. And so when I realized that journey was over and I had launched these kids into adulthood, that it was like I really wanted to do something for me. And so that's when, it was probably about 4 years ago that I sat down and said, this is it. And it took a few months to get the first book done. And then it took, you draft it, but then you must edit. And so it's interesting because it's through that editing that I learned to write. And these poor, it's these poor characters, because Stone of Love was the first book I ever wrote. And that first book, that first draft, that first thing you do, it's always not the best. you know. And these, poor Colin and Brielle, those are the main characters of the first of Stone of Love, the first book, and those poor people, I feel so bad for them as characters because I had to butcher them to learn to write. I had to butcher the story. It got torn apart 2 times. It's been through numerous edits. It took 2.5 years to get it ready for a publisher, so a publisher would accept it. And it was quite a journey, and I love those characters, and it's nice that they carry through the entire series. They're the monarchs as we go through this entire series because each book features a different stone. First book is Stone of Love, the second book is Stone of Fear, the third book is Stone of Lust. And so as we go through these journeys, there's different characters that their love stories are told with the hunt of another stone. but the monarchs, Colin and Bree, carry through the entire series.
Love that. What is your schedule like when you are writing a book?
I'm a 9 to 5 girl. I'm a working 9 to 5. I don't know if that's programmed in me or, it's interesting because I do get asked that question, and I am a 9 to 5 girl, but what's funny is I have my best ideas at 3 a.m. when I'm laying awake at night. Those are when those epiphanies come, and because your mind is clear, the house is silent, there's and I make sure and keep my phone next to me so I can make little notes, because I have had epiphanies, especially when I first started writing. I had epiphanies at 2, 3, and 4 in the morning when you're laying awake at night, and I never took notes, and I'd wake up and I'd be so mad because I'd forget them. And yeah, there was one time I had forgotten a nickname for Bree, and that's her nickname, Bree, Brielle. Her real name's Brielle for the first character at Stone 11. I had forgotten that the nickname was Bree, and I'd come up with it in the middle of the night, and because it's actually Gaelic for a big storm, and I was like, why did I think of that? And I woke up next 3 days to remember what her nickname was. So ever since then, I've had to take little notes. But yeah, I'm a 9 to 5 girl all the way.
Love that. What do you need in your writing space to help you stay focused?
Uh Well, and the big sigh is my writing space has changed. It started, when I first started this, I didn't have an office. We didn't even have a home office. Son number two was still living in at home. He isn't now, and so his room's now an office. But when I first started writing, I had my chair is in the great room, which literally sits kind of on the edge of the great room into the kitchen, into the breakfast room, and so it's kind of Grand Central Station to the home. And as raising my kids and volunteering and whatnot, I just had a laptop on a rolling table, and so I started there. And it was problematic for writing because it was very distracting because it was Grand Central Station to the home. And so we carved out a space for me, and so now I have a writing nook that is in the corner of a game room, but it's still open. But you know what? The writing nook makes me comfortable. I have little stones that I like to rub while I work, a moonstone. I have other stones that I've picked up that I like to rub when I work. I love it silent. I live in Texas, and so when we hit those triple digits, there's a huge shop fan behind me because I'm on the second level that launches. We have this balcony that launches into the downstairs of the home. And so when we hit those triple digits and our air conditioners have a hard time at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, this huge shop fan kicks on. And at first it's hard to get used to, but after a while I get used to the sound and it drowns out everything else in the house. So it's kind of like white noise, it's kind because I can't hear, oh, I can't hear my kids, I can't hear my husband, I can't hear, and that's nice. But yeah, I like silence. I like my space. Um, I like my little stones I rub because I'm fidgety, and yeah.
Love that. What is your favorite writing snack and drink?
Excuse me. I always drink water. I drink juice, water, wine, and coffee. So I always have ice water. And it's funny, the reason I snickered when you mentioned it, because the writing space that I have is a beverage nook. We converted a wet bar into a beverage nook. We pushed all the cabinets up against the wall. There's two little study areas there that you pull up a chair to. And there's a coffee maker and a small refrigerator. So I sit next to a refrigerator, which is problematic for my diet. And I keep little sneaky snacks. It's nuts or it's granola bars or it's cheese or and of course my afternoon beverage is my favorite Scottish black tea. It's morning tea. Taylor's Scottish black tea is my favorite sipping beverage when I sometimes work in the afternoon. But sometimes it's shortbread. I love Scottish shortbread. I order it special. I went to Scotland in June a year ago. We had a trip to Scotland. Of course, we went to go see all these places that I include in my books. There's a couple castles, the Isle of Iona, Dunstafnage Castle. We saw Donnelly Castle in Oban. We went to the Isle of Iona and the Abbey there. And these are all places I write about. And I got kind of stuck on some foods there. And so I keep them around for my Nicky Knacks, sneaky snacks.
Love that. What type of books do you personally enjoy reading?
Oh, I still love my genre. I still love romance. I still love paranormal romance. I read other friends' books. I'm not much into mystery. I have read it, trying to understand the genre. It doesn't really appeal to me, which I find interesting because there is suspense and mystery in my books, and there's some. I always have a twist and a turn in my plot lines. There's always a surprise. There's always suspense. So it's interesting because I have those elements. I don't know why I can't, clasp onto those books. But romance is always my go-to. Historical, anything that's historically accurate, the paranormal, anything with fae. I love the dragon shapeshifters, which is actually interesting because Stones of Iona leads into another series that are my dragon shapeshifters. And so I have a whole nother 7-book series that has to do with the stones, that connect to the stones, that has to do with these dragon shapeshifters. And they are actually introduced in the first book. And it's a backstory as to how and why the stones had to be given to the McDougal family in the human realm for safekeeping. And it had to do with these men that are dragon shapeshifters, and their father's the king of the evil fae, and he's the evil one after all the stones, and he created the evil stones to hunt the good stones. And so this entire backstory, I wrote this backstory just as, because someone was like, why are the stones with the McDougals? And I went, I don't know. Let me explore that. It's like, and so I came up with this backstory. And as I came up with the backstory, because it had to have the goal, motive, conflict, flaw, stake, it had to have all the components of a good story. And I wrote it, I came up with it, wrote it. That afternoon, I was walking through my garage and it was like this moment just hit me. I had to stop and I went, oh, I've got a whole nother series. And actually, the fun part of that is, while I was trying to sell Stone of Love and while I was trying to, look for an agent, look for a publisher, try to get this book, because I didn't want to self-publish. I wanted to go with a traditional publisher. And, while I'm shopping it and getting, 101 rejections, but while I'm out shopping it, someone said, you need another project in case you can't sell Stone of Love and you can't sell the stones. What else have you got? And I said, well, I got these dragons and they're sexy and this is great. And so I wrote the first book and I liked it so much. I wrote Damien's book, and they're 3 brothers that are shape-shifting dragons, and their father's the king of the evil fae, and their father's all throughout the entire first series. He's the evil mastermind trying to hunt the good stones, and he's the foe against the McDougal family. And that's their dad. And so I wrote Damien's book, and he's a dragon shapeshifter, and I liked it so much. I wrote his brother's Tiberius's book. I liked that so much. I started working on Magnus, which is the 3rd brother. And then I signed the first contract for Stone of Love. And so I had to like set it aside. And I'm excited because, like I said earlier, I just finished the 7th book in the Stones of Iona series. It's got 3 Christmas companion books. The first 2 are written. The 3rd book I've got to start working on because it's sort of a bridge between the 2 series before I can get back to my dragons, my sexy shape-shifting dragons. And so I like those books too.
Love that. Are there any books or authors that inspired you to become a writer?
Ooh, everyone always says Diana Gabaldon, and how can you not? It's every time travel author has got to have read her books. They are inspiring. Her writing is wonderful. She, as a writer, is inspiring. Donna Grant. There's quite. I almost have to pull out a list because it's like I got to look on my Kindle for my reading list to figure out which ones. Mary Morgan is actually a writer with Wild Rose Press, who's my publisher. And one of the reasons why I chose Wild Rose Press to submit to was because I had read her books and her series, and now we're friends, and that's fun. Um, you know, Goodness, I'm drawing a blank. There's a long. It's a long list. I'm well read, but quite a few. Mostly romance.
Love that. What books did you grow up reading? Did you have an all-time favorite?
Ooh, I don't really recall the names or the authors. That, like I said, for a long up until college, I swiped them all for my mother and my sister. So whatever they were reading, was what I was reading. Other than that, it was textbooks having to do with dance. So just it's anything I could get my hands on that was romance. Romance was that the familiar trope of the damsel in distress and the masculine guy that comes in and saves her, and it's a happily ever after at the end.
Love that. On the other side of that, now as an adult, what are your favorite series or authors that if they come out with something, you automatically grab it?
Um, Diana Gabaldon. I like I like Steele. I don't know. I don't read as much as I used to because I write. I write a lot, and I spend a lot of stuff that I read now are all writer's helps book. And I spend a lot of free time reading things that work on my writing as a craft and my storytelling as an art. So it's I the first when Diana Gabaldon's next book comes out, I'm definitely book 10. It's been a long wait, and it's interesting because she quit writing for a long time. Well, she quit on this series. She was doing the Lord John series, but yeah, it's anticipated, and I'll definitely get that.
Love it. What would you tell someone just starting out with reading again?
With reading again, okay. I almost thought you were going to say writing when I first heard the first part of the question. Reading, so you caught me off guard when you said reading. Reading again, it's I first off, I've never thought of stop reading. I've always there's always that escapism that comes with reading, and I guess that's what you need to embrace. Is look for the familiar things, and that's I think why people like the romance genre so much, is because there's so many rules, and that's not a bad thing. There's so many different tropes, and it is endless with what you can do, but it always has to end with that happily ever after, that happy for now. And that's like a warm blanket to some people. And so whether you're reading romance, whether you're reading mystery, whether you're reading drama or, rom-com or, whatever floats your boat, embrace it for the escapism that it is, and that's what it's all about. That's what reading is all about, is opening your mind, going someplace else, following a writer's imagination, and letting them take you on a journey so that you escape the humdrum of your life. That's why I love doing time travel and paranormal, is because it's not the humdrum. And it's interesting because I have a far from humdrum life. I've raised triplets. I've had this performing arts background. I people say you don't have a humdrum life, and I'm like, really? Yesterday was fun. Today looks pretty fun. Tomorrow looks pretty boring. I don't know. We'll see. So just embrace it for the escapism that it is.
Love that. On the other side of that, what would you tell someone just starting to write their own book?
Yeah. Now, see, that was the question I thought was coming, and then that's fine. I love talking about this. Because I was scared to write at first. Back in the 30s, I started writing, and it sucked. It was just I'd start writing and I'd pour my heart into it, and I'd look at it and I go, oh, that is just awful. I wouldn't read that. And what you have to understand when you get started is that you have to start somewhere. You got to start somewhere. And writing is a practiced art. It is a skill set that it's like dance. It is a skill set that takes work. I didn't wake up one day, throw on a pair of point shoes and dance professionally with Dallas Ballet. I started dancing at 3. It took a long time. It took class after class after class. It took a lot of work. Writing is a skill set. You must practice. So start somewhere. Just start writing. Even if you think it sucks, I shouldn't have stopped in my 30s. I shouldn't have thrown all those stories out. I should have gone back and edited. I should have gone back and learned. I should have gone back and yeah, I regret it, but I'm glad that I waited because I'm more mature about this. And you just have to be able to sit down and do it. Just sit down and write it. Don't sit there, oh, I'll get around to it one day, or oh, that's something for next week, or maybe next spring when I get done with this project. No, make time now. Write a paragraph. It's some days I don't write. Some days I the last scene of book 7, not the last scene, it was the last scene I wrote. It's a scene in the middle, but it was a pivotal scene in the book. And this is the closing of the whole series. And I waited 2 weeks to write it because I kept going, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. Stop doing I don't know. I just sat down and just started writing because I knew in my heart where it had to be. But even when you're starting out, write. You can always go back and edit. You can always make it better. You can always get feedback, always find a friend, always find a writing friend, get in a writing community, start reading up on things, just sit down and do it.
Love that so much. What's one thing that people are generally surprised to find out about you?
Ah, usually it's the triplets. Usually it's the triplets because that is a surprising thing, and it was a very surprising thing to us. It was we were very surprised when the ultrasound technician said, "Holy God, there's a third one!" Because at first it was twins. In the middle of the ultrasound, it was twins, and we were 10 minutes into the ultrasound, and it was, "Oh my God, there's a third one." So it's usually the triplets. It might be. I don't know. I have typical hobbies. I cook. I like gardening. I travel. But yeah, I'm going to have to go with the triplets is usually the shell shocker of what people, and it's not, it's kind of funny because, I have this huge dancing career. I started at 3 when I went to a performing arts high school, an arts magnet school. That's kind of like the movie Fame. And Fame was based on a magnet school in New York, but I'm in Houston. And then I went on to college and I danced professionally in college and I danced with a number of nonprofit companies. So I have an extensive performing experience, owned a dance studio, ran a dance company. And, people that those triplets overshadow all that. So, that's kind of fun.
Love it. Is there anything you would like to say or add?
Um, you know, I love what I do now. I've loved a lot of things I've done, and I've done a lot of really interesting things. But I love what I do now. I love waking up. I love getting to work in the day. I love talking to readers and finding out, how people react to my stories and, my thoughts and my ideas and my dreams. I pour into these stories and I just love what I do and I love sharing it with everyone. And I'm really appreciative of the fact that people actually like my stories and respond to them well and enjoy them. And so, I just want to share my stories and have a good time. I want to take those readers on that escapism.
Love that. Where's the best place for readers to find your books? I know some readers love signed copies. Is that an option? And the best place to connect with you?
Actually, the best place to connect is my social media. I whether it's Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook, it's Mizard Author. So that's Mizard author. Across all my social media platforms. My website is margaretizardauthor.com. So it's Margaret, Margaret author.com. You can find signed copies of my books on my website. Do go ahead and sign up for my newsletter because my newsletter, you can sign up on my website for that. But I always talk about where I'm doing appearances, giveaways, Facebook parties, social things across my social media platforms. Actually, today I'm involved in a Facebook party at Novel and Lattes Facebook group. And I've constantly got something going on. Somewhere I'm giving out something. One of my favorite things that I do, a lot of other authors don't do, is I have a book swag box, and I give away a number of these every book release. The book swag box has book bag, pen, signed book. It has a recipe card, a bookmark. It has a Tervis wine glass, so it is a footed metal wine glass, as well as a Dublin shot glass. And each of the glasses, I've designed a specific logo for each book based upon its stone. And so they're actually they're the vinyl and the etching and whatnot are done by me, so they're handcrafted. But I give away these huge book swag boxes, and like Stone of Love, it had a stuffed animal that matched the lore of the book. Stone of Fear, which came out in June, had a necklace featuring an amethyst stone. So, each and I've had such a blast putting these together because I get to go around and pick all the knickknacks that go in it. But, follow me on my socials, sign up for my newsletter. I give away at least 5 of those book swag boxes. They're valued anywhere from 100 to $120 a piece. I give away those as promos anytime I do a book release, and try and keep some around for Facebook parties that I do routinely throughout the year. So, just sign up for the newsletter, get on my socials, and we can connect.
Amazing. Love that so much. It's a unique thing. Well, thank you so much for being here today. We're so grateful that we got to interview you. We'll be sure to drop those links in the show notes. That way everyone can find you. And again, thank you so much.
Well, thank you for having me. I had such a great time.